Hello all and welcome to the next session of the AI Cloud and Modern Workplace Conference 2026. We are honored to welcome a very, very special guest, not just an expert, but a good friend. He's far away from us, but we hope to see him again back in Greece and back in Thessaloniki. We speak about Kos Bellis, a distinguished speaker to the AI Cloud and Modern Workplace Conference. Kos is a highly accomplished Power Platform director and enterprise architect with deep experience designing secure, scalable, and a mission-critical solution. He has a proven track record working across the policing and the health sector in the UK, delivering architectures that combine security, governance, and modern innovation. He is certified Microsoft Azure architect, natural communicator and trusted technology advisor, Power Platform expert with mastery in Vnet integration, security, DevOps, Copilot, and complex enterprise integration, strong program and project management professional, hold on digital electronics from University of Sussex and University of Brighton, AI specialist with a diploma from Columbia University, recognized globally as Microsoft Fast Track Architect, and over 15 Microsoft certifications. He got over 15 Microsoft certification, and of course, not even an excellent professional as I described, but a very, very good friend, a man who always supports us and who always willing to help us, not just in the conference. Every time that we have a problem with George, we will ping Kos. Kos, a big thank that you are here today once again. A big thank that you are a man who never forget that you become from Thessaloniki. So we are very close to us. And I want George to say a few things about you before we give you the stage.
First of all, you said everything, because everyone knows that he's a very close friend to me. He's a great colleague the last more than 10 years. I have nothing more to say. You said everything. I
George,
so that I know
George,
that yeah.
George, you need to restart your headphones. As usual, we have the same problem. I will get the chance during George restarting his headphone. We discuss a lot about you.
There is not much time. So, Kos, please mate, the stage is yours. Start presenting us.
First of all, thank you for the very, very warm welcome, and publicly and sincerely apologies that I didn't enjoy the last one due to health issues. This is one of my favorite conferences that I'm always up for it. The material today has been prepared specifically for this one, and I have never presented that anywhere. When I usually do that, it becomes quite technical, but again, like you call me when I need help, I call you when I need help. So if I go extremely technical, feel free to jump in and tell me, you know what, you need to slow down. And George is very familiar with that. We've done that a number of times between us. I haven't been in Greece, for a long time, but hopefully this summer we will catch up. Due to work commitment and purely work commitment. With that being said, I will thanks for the great introduction. I had if I go, I had this slide prepared. I sort of don't know
too many awards. Come on.
This is some of the certifications. I'm now doing the Copilots one, and for the community, I want to emphasize how important it is to do and follow the Microsoft roadmap. It's not, if you possess a certificate, doesn't mean that you mastered the product, but it does mean that you can talk about it. And if you're interested, you can actually start learning about it. So it's very, very, very critical for the entirety of the community to follow the roadmap, do the certificates, do the applied skills, and especially now with the new Copilot ones. I have one, I think, tomorrow, the new Copilot business one. It's very, very important for all of us to follow. And all the presentations during the conference, they're talking about Copilot in the agentic era. So it's very, very important for us to follow and try to learn from Microsoft and slowly apply all those techniques. With that being said, my presentation today is about Vnet ejection. Vnet ejection was one of my, it still is one of my biggest pains on a number of clients. That they want Power Platform to adhere to the zero trust model. That have been extremely challenging because it's not that easy to implement. It's easy if you follow the out of the box roadmap, the one that Microsoft suggests, which is not really configuration. It's full of hundreds of lines of PowerShell scripts. And you have to be a scripter, you have to be a coder, you have to know networks to implement all that. And when it comes down to my responsibility, I had to build both sides, both the Azure side, the network side, and the Power Platform side. So a little bit about what a Vnet ejection is on Power Platform for people that are not so technical and they're not too much into networks to understand. So Power Platform is a platform as a service or a software as a service. It's quite close. It lives on its own isolated environment. So if everything is within Power Platform, everything is fine. But the moment you want to go outside the platform and call a service like an Azure function, a web service, a blob storage, anything you're going to call from Power Platform, you're actually choosing to leave the platform and go through an encrypted other SSL communicated line to Azure. But if you're happy to be in the same region, that's fine. You're using the Microsoft backbone. But if you're not in the same region, things can become extremely tricky. So to enterprise implementations, to enterprise architectures, and to clients that are contained with secure data within the region, and that's something very common we have in the UK, the Vnet ejection is the way to go. But there is some challenges and there is some difficulties as well. So I'm going to talk about the enterprise security challenge, what that means and why it's very critical for all the low coders to be able to perform a Vnet ejection. I will go then on a virtual network deep dive, which is I'm a little bit scared about that bit of the presentation because that might be a little bit more technical than it should be. Architectural patterns, security governance, an AI case study with real scenarios, best practices and the common pitfalls of the Vnet ejection, and finally I have a visual conceptual diagram of an implementation that we can discuss or ask questions or spend some time on it. So moving on, Power Platform on a virtual network, why it matters. So most of the enterprises, large-scale businesses out there, they want private access to enterprise resources without public internet exposure. Power Platform is literally on the internet. You fire up your browser, you log into it, you're on the internet. You're talking to Dataverse, which is an API that sits above a complicated structure of Cosmos DB, blob storages, and Dataverse, and SQL Azure, apologies. And all that when you decide to leave that isolated environment and integrate, enterprises start asking questions. So security connectivity to Azure or on-premises systems, one of the main reasons, especially if you have on-premise system and you use express route, you can integrate and bring everything together nicely and secure. It eliminates the public IP allow listings or service stack dependencies. It works a little bit differently. It works with a policy. That's how we integrate with Azure, and we're gonna deep dive on it. And it's pretty much on the well-architected Power Platform framework. It pretty much aligns the zero trust and regulatory compliance models. So it's fully compliant with the zero trust model, and it can pass any pen tests. So it pretty much ends the trouble that we had with Power Platform, integrating outside Power Platform, pen testing and enterprise implementation, and pretty much having the whole implementation flagging up like a Christmas tree because of risks. What drives all that? All that is literally the need to keep outbound traffic to data sources and away from the public internet, reduce the data extrafiliation. So there is a risk on a network level, on control. So we implement energy, firewalls, routes, a number of things. Simplify the connectivity to private endpoints. So we have to implement private endpoints, use managed identities. So it's all about best practices. And being an architect in the UK, meet banking, health, and government standards with tighter network boundaries, so that we can actually deliver integrations or Power Platform standalone products on a level that's acceptable for them. What changes when we perform a virtual network rejection? We start to be able to support workloads, and we can execute them from a dedicated subnet, so from a private IP. So the whole Microsoft ecosystem. So when you have an implementation at enterprise level, they usually have MDM laptops, Intune laptops, and load to Intune. So unless you're on a laptop, you cannot access a resource. That means that they have a policy, and sometimes they also log into a Vnet in order to access resources. All that is fine when you Vnet eject. You don't have to go through complicated IPsec tunneling and stuff like that. You Vnet eject, you bring the platform onto the network, you build your network, and I know George had a great presentation about building networks. So all that falls in together. So if you want a zero trust model and be able to access Power Platform from a corporate device, and not only that, this is now fully possible. DNS, there's a lot of DNS settings, and DNS can be either public or the Azure default DNSs, or very, very, very private ones. And obviously private endpoints that become the default happy path for any successful calls. What does it mean in a few words? What is a Vnet injection? So it's literally getting parts of the platform and injecting them. So adopting a subnet that belongs to a Vnet. What does that mean? Plugins, connectors, and a number of other things, they communicate to the internet through a route that goes through a Vnet and is fully controllable. So you have the ability to create an Azure firewall, a WAF as we call it, and literally cut down all communications to the internet. However, Power Platform still works. It still communicates with Azure or Azure Functions or anything you really want it to work with. So it's a container that is being injected into a delegated subnet. It gets a NIC, so what we call an Ethernet card. So it gets a small NIC attached to that, and you have a private IP from your subnet communicating to the entirety of the Power Platform. All the traffic to all your resources, they stay inside your network, nothing going out unless you allow it. The key applications, obviously NSGs, routing tables, firewalls, NATs, and obviously DNS apply, private endpoints, private DNS. So managed identities are becoming very, 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 very important. So it's an Azure where we have an Azure function and a Vnet injection. You need managed identities in order to give them access to your Power Platform environment, rather than a secret and a key that we always used to do in the old days. If you still need egress access or internet access, you can put an app gateway, or if you have a custom firewall, you can open the IP you want to the firewall, so that you can actually open up the whole route to the internet if you want to. So full control over a SaaS product. Connectors and authentication patterns remain the same if you have a gateway. So not really a big change when you actually build all that. A very simplified runtime path on the screen. So you have a database plugin. It's injected with a NIC and a private IP on a container, and you can target an endpoint into Azure to pretty much any Azure service you want, and that's all isolated. It cannot really be attacked from anywhere, pretty much. key benefits. What are the key benefits in a small reference architecture? The reference architecture, obviously, it's very different to what you guys would expect. It's a block diagram of a reference architecture, because the good thing, the architecture as we mean it, the architects, it's my last slide. So what is the key benefits? Azure subnet delegation, so we control everything through subnet. Reduce attack surface, so we don't really leave much choice to attackers, pretty much zero choice. Obviously, if you have a power page, that's a different game. But if you don't have a power page, a public endpoint, and you have Canvas as Power Platform or pretty much any CRM product, there's not much choice of attacking your implementation, because everything is isolated. Enterprise-grade network isolation for database workloads. And the good thing, as we're going to see in a minute, is that the whole thing scales with existing Azure networking and governance partners. It has failover networks. It has everything we need. So it doesn't really break. It's resilient, and it adheres to all the security measurements and tactics that we have in Azure. So the reference architecture of the screen, it shows that in the Power Platform environment, so to the left here, there's a Power Platform. That's the Power Platform environment where we have database plugins, connectors. Not everything is supported. I'm gonna show what's supported on my next slide, but the technologies that's actually supported on the Power Platform environment can be Vnet injected. That means that we create an enterprise policy. That's an Azure resource, and we inject all the workloads to private IPs from a subnet. So that enterprise policy with a delegation to the subnet, it's actually your black box routing table from Power Platform to Azure. Azure Vnet, delegate subnet, and obviously we delegate the enterprise policy, energy, firewall, routes. You can paint your own drawing. You can do whatever you want. It's a piece of art. So you can create all the security with all the capabilities that Azure gives you. Vnet inject enterprise policy and literally use all that tech to access Power Platform. Private targets can be everything. Azure Platform as a Service, private APIs. A very good scenario is APIM. So you have your Power Platform injected to a Vnet, your APIM on the same network, subnets talk to each other, all your APIs in an APIM, full control of everything, full security. Obviously, with on-premises, you can if you have your Vnet and your Azure route, all of it done and working, you can peer your Vnet where your delegated subnet is, and have a very, very secure communication to your on-prem network without any issues or problems from attackers and stuff like that. Those are some of the core concepts and some of the main things that are supported. So database plugins, custom connectors, SQL Server connector, Azure Key Vault connector, storages, so all the Azure storages, SQL Data Warehouse, any HTTP calls. So on Power Automate, where we do HTTP calls, if the authentication is Azure AD, that's it. It goes through the Vnet. It doesn't go public. Snowflake, Databricks, AI search, all of that is supported. There is a lot of notes on that slide. There's a lot of material, and there's a lot of discussion we have. If there are any questions, please feel free to interrupt me with what that means, why that works, why it doesn't work, and I'm more than happy to explain. Region and environments prereqs. What does that mean? When we bring the Power Platform on the Vnet, it's critical that you have one Vnet on your primary region and one on the secondary. You define what's primary and secondary. In terms of the UK, that I'm very familiar and I've done that more than 20 times, UK South and UK West. So if you build your primary to UK West, you need to mirror to the UK South and pin them together. That gives you your regional resiliency. So if there's anything wrong, there's a route robin algorithm that switches to the other region so that you don't have any problems or latency. Requirements. Environment must be a managed environment. I don't believe that today there's a lot of Power Platform implementations that they're not using managed environments. Only if they're older and the architect is scared to change it to a managed environment because something will break. Create Vnet subnets in the Azure region. They come in pairs, southwest. I have all the, well, not all, but 6 of the regions, US, UK, Europe, Canada, Japan, and Australia, and which regions you should use. Delegate subnets for failover in both regions, and each enterprise policy that you build, it's going to use a unique subnet. So there's no reuse of policies. So we cannot have one policy across many subnets. It's one per subnet. The policy is literally what connects Azure with Power Platform. Supported environment types. Production default sandbox developers, so pretty much everything except training. There's no point of doing that on a training environment because usually on a training environment the access is external. Trial and database for teams are not supported. Trial environments, of course, are not supported. Database for teams because they're containerized within teams. There's no point. And governance tenants, very, 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 very difficult to do some of that stuff. But specifically for the US, GCC high supported, but DoD and GCC not supported. For those who know what that means from the States, they know what I'm talking about. Example of region mappings, I already mentioned them. So sizing and scaling for the delicate subnet. So we cannot go and build a subnet with a range of 1 IP. It will not work. What is on my slide is the very, very minimal requirements. Just to quickly get it out of the way and then talk about the specifics, a 256 subnet is what we're looking for. However, sometimes there are some limitations. So if we have already built our Vnet and we don't want to destroy that and we don't have the numbers, that slide will give you exactly the minimal requirements so that everything works fine. So in a production environment, and when we all that implementation set the price. So for anyone on the call who's not familiar, we're always talking about the multi environment ALM. So dev, test, production, pre-prod, and prod, and all those with different with different policies, Vnet injected independently, and that's why there is a difference between how many IPs we need per each environment. So for a production environment, which means we're live and users are using our implementation, typically 25 to 30 IPs on my subnet. For a non-production, 6 to 10 will do. For a subnet reserve, 5, and I'll explain what that means. A new environment starts with a minimum of 4 containers. So when you have an environment and you inject it without having anything built, it will inject 4 containers. So you mean you do every container will use an IP to communicate with your Azure. So you do need at least 5. Containers scale dynamically. So if you start using plugins, and your plugins are being triggered from an Azure function, and those plugins are used by 100 users, it will scale to give you the bandwidth to do that. So and that's been dynamically scaled. So it can go up to 10 to 30 containers in a blink of an eye. Multiple requests can run per container. Each container uses 1 IP. If you associate multiple environments to one policy, you need more than what I have on the slide. However, from my personal experience, that's not recommended. A policy per environment is a better strategy. Example, 4 production environments on 1 policy, total IPs, 4 environments times 30 IPs plus 5 reserve, at least 125 IPs. So that will be 25 CIDRs. 128 IPs will be needed to fit that implementation. So we always give the maximum to 156, and we go from there. If that's not possible, here's your limits on the screen. A very high level flow of how we set up that. I know that subject is quite technical, so I would prefer to be able to have the opportunity, and maybe the future we do in that conference, to have a lab and try to build something like that. It will take a day, probably more, but it's very, very, very interesting. So if someone has tried and failed, here's a quick guide of how we can set that up. Prepare your environments. It needs to be managed. Prepare your Azure subscription and roles. If you have your own subscription or you're master of your own subscription, a global admin role will be helped. Otherwise, there are multiple roles that there's not just enough time in that presentation to tell you exactly the roles. Review your plugin and connector endpoints. There is a because everything is happening with scripting. None of that are configurable with click, touch and go, as we call it. So there's no configuration. The only thing you can configure is Azure resources and the Power Platform environment. When you actually Vnet eject, all of it's PowerShell scripting. And they are available on the Microsoft GitHub, but obviously, as always, they will need a little bit tweaking according to what permissions we have, which PowerShell, which nugget we're going to install, and so on and so forth. So prepare, always be prepared. Create VNets. VNets must be created in pairs, and those VNets must have dedicated subnets prior to the ejection. So you have to have your strategy and architecture in place. Obviously, you always need a Power Platform subnet. That is where you delegate, but you shouldn't use that subnet. And obviously, I was prepared to say that's common knowledge, but I will rephrase that. If you delegate the subnet, you cannot add anything in it. It has to be empty. So that subnet is going to be for Power Platform only, and you have to build your other subnets to add your web apps, your functions, your logic apps, whatever you want. You want a subject per stack is the best strategy. So create dedicated subnets per stack, and custom DNS if needed. Very, very, very tricky. When you put your DNS in, and you need to build your private endpoints, they first need to resolve. If they don't resolve, the VNet injection will fail. After everything is resolving, and all the tech is on the Azure side, and your Power Platform is fully prepared, and you have all the code written that you need through plugins or custom connectors, then you delegate your network to the enterprise policy. If you delegate and then you change anything on your Azure, you will break your Power Platform environment. Well, break. It will become unreachable. It will be in a state of limbo, as we call it, not accessible. You have to take the delegation out, perform calls to reset your environment, reconfigure your Azure, and then VNet eject again. Subnet is there for Power Platform only. That's the moment you're gonna reserve that and delegate the Power Platform delegation is called. You cannot add anything anyway. If you add something prior to that and delegate, again your environment will break. All that information is not available out there. And if someone is interested and is going to Google information about VNet ejection, you'll find huge threads of people complaining that their environment doesn't work anymore, even when they take the ejection out. Create enterprise policy. That's pure PowerShell scripting. It's happening with a PowerShell script. There's multiple ways to use the PowerShell to create that according to access. If anyone has any questions, I have mastered all of them. PowerShell is PowerShell add-ons, Visual Studio, CLI on Azure. I have written the scripts rewritten the Microsoft scripts for pretty much everything that exists, and you can manipulate your Azure tenant programmatically. Attach subnets, always have your subnets, we'll talk about that. And as a last step, you link your environment. So you have to associate your policy, that's again through PowerShell, to your environment through and you can see in the PP admin center. If you use, there is a way with a Power Platform admin role to do it in your Power Platform admin center. Not recommended. I will use the PowerShell. It will create, if it goes in limbo, it's going to be very difficult to undo it. Validate connectivity, what that means. You have to use something that it's talking to your Azure subnetted resource, and you can actually see your resource being triggered. That's the ultimate test, the ultimate goal in the end. An operational note, non-common knowledge again. Power Platform performs periodic health checks to the configured DNS server. So what that means, if your failover network and your primary network are not fully configured, on a health check, something might fail, and that may again bring your environment in limbo without literally expecting it. All of a sudden, that can happen. So ensure everything works, because after everything is in place, there's an automated periodic DNS server resolving that is happening for health checks. Random scenario, if you have an Azure function that you have been injected, a very, very, very good strategy is to enable your health check on your Azure function. because if something is wrong, it will not actually find the underlying VM for the Azure function, and it will give you the error there that your code is not running, and you'll figure it out before disaster. Security control and constraints. Controls you own, so you put NSGs for level 3, level 4, allow, deny, monitor outbound from delegated subnet, route tables to force egress through firewall, or any appliance pretty much, private DNS zone to resolve private endpoints. You can use the public ones for Azure, but sorry, you can use the private DNS zone of Azure, but you can have your own DS server in Azure and point it there. Not gateway for control, internet egress, static public IP, all that is in the game. Important constraints, public internet calls may break unless you explicitly provide NAT access. Power platform is using your Vnet custom DNS for name resolution. Endpoints must present TLS sets, chain signed by well-known certificate authorities, otherwise you're in trouble. Azure aware plugins are not supported within the Vnet injection, so your plugins must live in the Power Platform as an extension of the platform. Defensive depth pattern. So if you want to really secure everything on the Power Platform side as well, DLPs, Vnet controls, private endpoints, and monitoring. All that is actually proposed. Monitoring, managed environments. So App Insights is the best way to monitor that. One of the biggest challenges that I had on a real life scenarios. So we proposed Vnet injection on real time clients, and we got a reply, but we have a data gateway on a Vnet. We're secure. I actually faced that scenario more than one time. There's a big difference. So the Vnet data gateway, for all the data guys out there, I'm pretty sure you all know what it is. How do I make my decision as an architect? So my client comes to me and they're saying, zero trust model, I have my Vnet data gateway. I was promised I have security. However, I'm pen testing and it lights up like a Christmas tree. Well, you wouldn't say, yes, that's expected. You have to explain. So decision guide, when do we Vnet inject and we delegate on the subnet? When do you use the data gateway? So Vnet injection will have API style calls, outbound calls, plugins, database plugins, supported connectors, short-lived how concurrency requests. So plugins, they have a 2 minutes timeout. So when we run those very, very fast plugins, private endpoints and private DNS, optional NAT for internet egress. This is what drives the decision for Vnet injection. On the other hand, if security for API calls is not that important, or I am within the Power Platform for anything I need, and I just need to create archive data repositories or Azure Synapse Analytics and stuff like that. So, or any ETL style workloads, a Vnet data gateway will be, it's an option without going through the hassle of a Vnet injection. Power BI, Power Platform data flows, data gateway will do the work. Optimized for data movement and refresh, and manage gateway cluster in your Vnet. So if you want to talk data, as we say in our architectural language, data gateways, it's good enough, it's secure. If you want to perform calls, REST API calls or webhooks or plugins, the Vnet injection is the way to go. Obviously, the one supersedes the other. If you have the Vnet injection, the data gateway, it's not really required. Common use cases. Use cases when you want a multi-LM and you want to use your Key Vault or SQL Azure, the Vnet injection is the best way forward, because with your Key Vault in Azure or your SQL Azure in Azure, you can have a managed identity, you can have your Vnet talking from Power Platform to that, and you can access your secrets and your keys and your passwords and everything you pretty much need to be in a Key Vault through a private network. Private on-premises integration, that's a very, very strong scenario. Lots of clients being on-prem, they want Power Platform, but they're worried about security. There you go, Vnet injection, peer to their Vnet, the Vnet express route to their on-prem, that's it, you're done. Connector and plugin workloads, regulated industry deployment. So on heavy industry, very, very common scenarios when you have to talk with IoT or machinery on-prem, that you need to be on a virtual network. This is how you bring your Power Platform to fill in the gaps with all the benefits of low code, but in a very, very secure environment. A quick example of an order approval with private dependencies. A Power Up, model-driven on canvas, it doesn't matter where you need to perform an order approve, Power Automate Flow. You've been at all that, and you have private targets, SQL, on-prem, Key Vault, API, private. You can Vnet inject all that, talk to it without any public traffic happening. Injected outbound path applies to support connectors and plugin calls. So outbound, inbound, both of them can be controlled. What about Copilot? So most of the presentations, except mine, are about the agentic era, Copilot, AI, big questions. And we work in that industry, we know exactly what an agent brings. So Copilot, especially the agent that we surface Copilot in Power Pages, Canvas apps, model-driven apps, so in Dataverse, that's fully possible. It works. So with Vnet, support enabled for the environment, Copilot agent can use private endpoints for key scenarios. Retrieve secrets from Azure Key Vault over HTTP, send telemetry to private endpoints, use virtual network support connectors. Optional patterns, enable Vnet support for the environment, create private endpoints, validate DNS resolution, use HTTP requests, validate telemetry. So your Copilot can work with a public interface, but handling all that data internally on your enterprise network. A simplified agent call path, Copilot Studio agent, Vnet enable environment, Vnet injected workload to a private IP, and you can use any private endpoints on your Azure tenant. Very, very important, especially with all the questions about is it safe? Is it responsible? Will everybody have access to my data? Will people be able to see salaries from my company? So if you want to securely access legacy data, fabric data, SQL on your Azure, you can inject, use your Copilot. Nothing can be attacked from outsiders. Best practices and common pitfalls. We're a little bit over 40 minutes, so I'll go quick on my slide, and my last slide is an architecture that I quickly describe, and I want to keep that within limits. I know it's quite technical. That is why it's a level 400 presentation. Anyway, anyone with questions, I will be more than happy to answer. So best practices and common pitfalls. Private endpoints for Azure Platform as a Service and validate private DNS. So unless your DNS is working, do not Vnet inject. It will not work. It will take you a lot of time to revert. Reverting a Vnet injection is also PowerShell, a couple of PowerShells, not very easy to handle. Prefer HubSpot with centralized firewall and monitoring. So use monitoring like App Insights centrally and have centralized firewall for your Vnet injection. It's a better way to treat it. Size subnets for peak concurrence and future growth. So if you know you're gonna use a lot of containers, a lot of plugins, as explained, every plugin per IP. Please try and give as much range as possible. Keep a dedicated subnet per policy. Do not mix other resources. Every policy, one subnet. Use NAT only when you must reach public endpoints during migration. That use NAT is the recommendations coming out from Microsoft documentation. I can tell you we have used custom routes with third-party firewalls. It works equally as nice. Pitfalls. Forgetting to peer the per region. So we have south and west. We don't create the peer, we Vnet inject. Our platform goes in limbo. It will not work. The environment breaks. You have to undo the injection, revert it, perform a couple of calls for every injected container that you have, so that it can wake up from its limbo and pair it and then re-inject. So normally, with someone who is doing it for second or third time, a Vnet injection overall will take, if you have everything in place, everything you need to, all the components, all the resources, all your environments, it's going to take a couple of hours to Vnet inject. If you get it wrong, you need another couple of hours to undo it, and obviously troubleshoot and redo it. So when you have promised 2 hours to do something, it can take you a day. DNS needs to resolve. If it doesn't resolve, your environment will go in limbo. Blocking DNS, health check, degrading health reporting. So everything that has with DNS has to be pre-configured. Using unsupported auth authentication. So, for instance, you have an Azure, sorry, not an Azure function. Let's find something else. You have an APIM and your Power Automate talks to it because you have an API and you use the HTTP connector. And as every code first person, you go for a secret. It will not go through the Vnet. If you Vnet eject, that call will not work. You have to change your authentication to Azure AD, and then your call will route and work. Assuming Power BI uses Vnet injection, it will use a data gateway on your Vnet. It will work fine. Pre-go live checklist, five points. Private endpoints, private DNS, energy firewall, NAT gateway, and obviously the diagnostics. So DNS resolution, network connectivity, and all that should be clean. My last slide is a little bit different. It's an architecture of an example of how it could work. So a user uses conditional access policies, MFAs, security groups, everything we pretty much need. It uses an enterprise application, so our SPN, anything we pretty much need, logs into Power Platform or to the environment, to a Power page. It doesn't really matter what's happening beyond that point. Is that your parts of your Power Platform, so your custom connector, things on your Power connectors on your Power Automate flow, plugins are being injected in a container, and an enterprise policy is connecting all of that through private endpoints to your Azure resources. The example on that specific proof of concept is APIM. So connect to APIM with a Vnet injection. So you can talk to your APIM south and west as a failover with a routing table and consume your APIs through a zero trust model. Obviously, on top of that, you can implement your application insights, your Power BI, everything you pretty much need for reporting. You can put on top of that. It will work just fine, and everything will adhere the zero trust model. So pretty much bypass any policy. I know that's a very quick description, but I can see we're 45 minutes. I know we did 10 minutes at the beginning, so 2.5 minutes before the hour. I will open the deck to any questions, if any, or to Konstantinos and George, just to have a quick discussion.
So, if you allow me, mate, that was the ultimate presentation. So you explained a very complex topic, used very clear slides, and provided with tips and useful information. I mean, thank you for sharing your insights on the Vnet integration with the Power Platform, mate.
It's one of the things I'm counting 22 implementations now. So, Kostas, you're on mute.
You're mute, mate.
A very professional presentation. And I have to be honest that I didn't understand the whole presentation. I don't have the background to understand it. Okay, but very professional. I understand terms that I didn't even know that I can understand. Okay,
that's why I warned in the beginning. Stop me if
Yeah.
I know how bad it can get. I've been in a room talking about stuff like that and people nodding like that without understanding anything. So I know. It combines most of the Microsoft stack and the knowledge. It's the knowledge you need to expand on that. It's unspeakable. So everybody fits in such an implementation. Every skill set. That's the outcome of the presentation.
I also believe that if we leave you, you can speak 3 days in a row.
When we started the presentation,
to describe architectures. Okay.
When we started, I set my timer on the speaker slides on the presentation so that I can keep track of time. That's why I'm on time. Don't kid yourself. I have another 25 slides.
I have to tell you that you are the real example of what an architect do. Because here in Greece we confused. We believe that architect is also engineer, is also administrator, is also something, I don't know what else. But today with this presentation, you show us how an architect it works and how important it is to have a role as an architect?
It's not only Greece, Konstantinos. It's everywhere. So I'll tell you my quote. I keep using it, but no, I don't think anyone understands because it's very Greek quote. If you want an architect to build you a house, he shouldn't only be able to give you the window. You need the rest of the house as well. So an architect is someone who builds the house, not just the window.
Yes.
So we have architects nowadays of one thing. This is a senior developer, a senior manager, a senior consultant. An architect must be able to architect. So I'm trying to keep those standards for myself.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree. You are a mentor. You are a mentor.
Thank you for your nice words. I'm trying my best.
So a big thank from the Greek community and the Greek friends. We have to move to the next and the last session, to the next slot with the last session with Angeliki from UK also.
I'm waiting for her session. I love Angeliki. I'm gonna watch all her session. She's one of the presenters. I've watched in a number of summits. I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna join.
We have a strong connections with UK. We have three speakers.
Excellent speakers.
Yes,
yeah.
Excellent.
It's you, AJ, and Angeliki.
AJ, I'll watch him as well tomorrow, just before the end. He's a very good friend. I love AJ.
He will close the conference.
Best way to close your event. I have seen him countless times. He's great.
He's great. Yeah.
Cost, thank you so much. Thank you once again.
Thank you for inviting me once more. See you soon.
See you soon in Thessaloniki.
In person.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Bye.